The Nightbeat starts right now.
Tonight, San Antonio police still waiting for a shooting suspect to surrender after he shot at a home earlier today. That standoff started around 3 o'clock this afternoon.
All this happening right at the intersection of General Bragg Drive and Braddock Drive on the far west side. The night team's Japhanie Gray has been there all day. Japhanie, in the end, were there any injuries reported?
Yes, Courtney, only one person was hit with gunfire, but that person was taken to the hospital with a non-life-threatening injury. In fact, for safety precaution, police evacuated the neighboring homes and sent the residents to that bus you see right there, which is a scene support bus, for shelter until the standoff is over.
We've been here how long? 35 years, I believe it is, and we've never seen this before. This is something else, you know.
By something, this neighbor who asked not to be identified means an unusual altercation between two exes here on General Bragg Drive.
Was an ex-boyfriend that had conducted a drive-by on his ex-girlfriend's house. He had shot a shotgun at the house. 5 people were in the house at the time of the shooting. Instead of hitting his ex, San Antonio police say a round went into her father's shoulder.
Well, it's just a sad situation, you know what I'm saying? Like, pray for them and hope that everything works out well.
After the shooting, the 37-year-old man ran back to his home just down the street and barricaded himself inside.
We've been trying to reach him by cell phone, by landline, and through the PA system. We have had no contact with him whatsoever. We believe that he's just simply ignoring us at the moment.
Captain Eric Hightower says patience is key in these kind of situations.
We'd much rather wait and bring a peaceful resolution to the problem than try to force a situation and put ourselves or the suspect into a situation where force may be necessary.
Again, at last check, the suspect has not surrendered, and police say that there's a strong possibility that he is still armed with that same shotgun that started this entire situation. Now, they say that if this all ends peacefully, that suspect is looking at 4 counts of deadly conduct and 1 count of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. On the far west side, Japhanie Gray, KSAT 12 News.
Thank you, Japhanie. Another pedestrian has been killed on a road that some city council members are calling a death trap. The crash on Culebra last night, prompting even more concern about a growing number of auto pedestrian deaths.
Yeah, San Antonio's numbers have been trending upward since 2017. The night team's Jonathan Cotto tells us how city leaders plan to reverse course.
Wide and busy roadways like Culebra Road make it a danger for pedestrians attempting to cross. A steady rise in deaths over the past few years, bringing more attention to the issue.
Culebra Road has long been one of the deadliest roadways for pedestrians. We see traffic fatalities with vehicles in a lot of places, including Culebra Road.
District 7 Councilwoman Ana Sandoval says roadways like Culebra are not designed for people to walk, and adding more crosswalks or crossover bridges alone will not solve the problem.
Number one, I would say we need smart roadway designs. What we have right now is, again, not built for people. It's built for cars.
She says it's important for designers to understand the pedestrian experience.
If I go walk down Culebra, I will tell you, I don't want to walk half a mile or 3/4 of a mile before I get to a safe crossing place. That's simply too much to ask in the heat that we experience in San Antonio.
Sandoval says current roadway designs present a hazard for pedestrians with children, those carrying groceries or in a wheelchair, and says street safety is a shared responsibility.
The most important thing, I think, is that we need to bring our drivers along with us in this sort of mental change about how we use our roadways.
That fatality we mentioned last night happened right here when a man attempted to run across the street here on the 2100 block of Culebra Road. Now, we've seen about an amount of 61 deaths in the past year, an upward trend from years past. Sandoval says that this roadway is actually currently under review. She's hopeful that the next bond project cycle will bring forward massive infrastructure improvements. Jonathan Cotto, KSAT 12 News.
Other top stories we're following today. A 19-year-old man shot and injured by Bexar County Sheriff's deputies after allegedly leading them on a high-speed chase and threatening them with a fake gun. That's according to deputies who say it all started just before 11 o'clock last night. Deputies say the man was driving recklessly at 5 Palms and Military Drive. When they tried to stop him, he apparently refused, which started the chase, at one point even brandishing what was later discovered to be a fake gun.
During that pursuit, in the ensuing minutes, the suspect continued to point that weapon out the driver's side window back at the deputies.
That suspect eventually cornered at Enrique Barrera Parkway in Westfield. That's where he got out and continued to aim the gun at deputies. That led them to fire at him, striking him in the arm. He was arrested soon after. Charges at this time still pending.
San Antonio police say 2 men are recovering after allegedly stabbing each other overnight. This happened around 11:30 p.m. in the 1000 block of Millwood Avenue. Police say it was a woman and drugs the men began fighting over in the middle of the street, which led both men pulling a knife. One of the men was taken to the hospital in critical condition with stab wounds to his chest and face, but both are expected to survive. Charges for both men are unclear at this time. Turning to COVID-19 and the impact here in Bexar County, officials announcing 174 new cases today and 11 new deaths. That case number is on the lower end as the county is still awaiting the state's lab report, which should be available tomorrow. Hospitalizations, though, do continue on a downward trend. 1,169 people, though, remain in care tonight, with 385 in the ICU and 247 on ventilators.
Meanwhile, as the race to vaccinate as many people as possible goes on, the debate over a $1.9 trillion COVID relief package also continues tonight in Washington. President Biden had hoped for bipartisan support, but on Friday seemed to indicate he was willing to move ahead without it. Then today, 10 GOP senators sent a letter to the White House asking for a meeting to discuss a possible compromise. The Republican proposal is about a third of what Biden is calling for.
With regard to the direct payments, we think they should be much more targeted. $50,000 cap for individuals, as an example, $100,000 for a family.
Meanwhile, the push to get Americans vaccinated continues, with many waiting in long lines for hours, while others across many states, including right here in Texas, are still struggling to even get an appointment. As for San Antonio, you can find all the information you need to know right now about scheduling an appointment, including who's eligible. It's all available right now at KSAT.com. Just look for the coronavirus tab on our homepage.
Outside with Live Cam, hope you've had a wonderful weekend. Really all around beautiful weather. Of course, we cleared out yesterday afternoon behind a frontal boundary, and that set us up for a wonderful day today. Beautiful night here in South Texas, downtown San Antonio. Those lights are twinkling. Beautiful sight to see there. At the airport, we're sitting at 50 degrees, so temperatures have really tumbled this evening because our skies are clear. Our winds are fairly light after being breezy earlier in the day, and our air is very dry. This is going to set us up for a pretty chilly start to the day tomorrow. We'll bottom out upper 30s, low 40s, so be ready to grab a jacket if you'll be heading out early tomorrow morning. Coming up, pretty nice start to February over the next few days. It'll get very warm by midweek, but then we've got our next front expected to arrive late Thursday. We'll talk about what that could mean for temperatures heading into next weekend coming up in just a bit. Courtney.
Thank you, Katie. Well, it's a homecoming celebration today for more than 24 military service members. More than 30 defenders with the 433rd Security Forces Squadron returned to Joint Base San Antonio-Lackland following a 6-month deployment in Southwest Asia. These reserve citizen airmen were mobilized to support ongoing United States Central Command operations. Their family members say they are grateful to have them home again.
It's been a very hard time, but we made it. And now they're home safe, and we're happy for that.
The 433rd Security Forces Squadron also trains unit members to meet wartime mission requirements.
As we all know, the coronavirus pandemic has halted many events since it started last year, but it didn't stop one local church from holding its annual fundraiser today. For the past 70 years, San Francisco Di Paolo Church has held a spaghetti dinner fundraiser. This year, the group made genuine Italian meatballs and sauce and handed out orders via curbside. Volunteers with the church say the event really goes a long way in supporting the church.
This is one of our only fundraisers, and so it's very important for us to try to continue that. It helps cover the bills, especially during the pandemic. Our attendance has been down, of course, so that means our contributions have been down. So we're very grateful for all of those that came and supported.
In total, we're told 3,100 meatballs were sold along with 90 gallons of spaghetti sauce.
Well, it is a complicated process that will help define our political landscape for the next decade. The Texas legislature will take up the task of redrawing the lines on our state's congressional and legislative maps. This week's episode of KSAT Explains is all about redistricting. Myra Arthur gives us a preview.
They look like random shapes, perhaps a kaleidoscope or even odd puzzle pieces, but they're actually the United States congressional districts of Texas.
If you look at them and you're thinking, well, they should all be kind of like somewhat contiguous and square, but then when you see one that kind of looks like a snake or something like that, you're kind of wondering, well, what's the logic behind that?
These shapes are a major factor in determining our representation in the U.S. House of Representatives, which means they play a major role in who is looking out for your best interests in Washington. These districts aren't drawn at random. This map looks this way by design, through a process called redistricting. In Texas, redistricting is done by our elected state lawmakers.
You have a situation where the politicians are choosing the voters when what we should be seeing is the voters choosing the politicians.
And in Texas, these maps have repeatedly gotten lawmakers in trouble over allegations of giving unfair advantages to certain political parties or voting groups.
It could be that lines are drawn to disadvantage rural voters or disadvantage urban voters. Sometimes lines can be drawn to disadvantage racial minorities.
For those of us who've been advocates for the minority communities, Latino and African American communities, there's a great deal of interest to make sure that those communities are adequately represented in the way the lines are drawn.
In this week's episode of KSAT Explains, we're talking about redistricting, examining how this once-a-decade process has become so contentious, and looking at why this year is expected to be a little bit different.
Still ahead on the Nightbeat, as we begin celebrating Black History Month, we take a look at how the coronavirus pandemic has impacted the Black community nationwide amid a year that also saw historic protests and elections. Plus, just 8 years old and a local boy is already leaving his mark on the publishing world. We'll introduce you to this talented young writer during this week's What's Up, South Texas.
And from Minnesota to Maine, more than 100 million Americans are facing plunging temperatures and winter weather alerts. The details after the break.
Tonight, portions of the Northeast bracing for a major winter storm that could drop more than a foot of snow in some areas.
The storm already impacting travel in New York has canceled COVID-19 vaccine appointments as the storm approaches.
Here's ABC's Andrew Dimbert with the details.
Cities all along the Northeast are preparing for what could be the biggest snowstorm in years.
Putting everyone on alert, please make, to the maximum extent you humanly can, make alternative plans for Monday right now.
New York City Public Schools switching to remote learning for Monday. All vaccination appointments will be rescheduled. Road crews getting ready. The city has 270,000 tons of salt on hand.
And so we really strongly encourage everyone, please stay at home tomorrow if you don't have to go out.
A state of emergency declared in New Jersey, and snow emergencies in effect Sunday night in Philadelphia and the Poconos. In Washington, D.C., snow plows are working to clear roads as the city sees its first significant snowfall in nearly 2 years. The storm wreaking havoc on travel, more than 900 flights canceled already. More than 250 crashes reported in Virginia. This fire truck flipped over on a slippery road. Luckily, no serious injuries. The storm made its way across the country over the weekend, walloping parts of the Midwest, with some areas buried underneath nearly a foot of snow.
Winter has finally arrived.
Whiteout conditions in Chicago, Lake Michigan covered in ice.
Where the land ends and the lake begins.
Forecasters are warning of treacherous conditions throughout much of the Northeast into Tuesday, with some areas seeing a total accumulation of as much as 20 inches. Andrew Dimbert, ABC News, Washington.
And sticking with cold weather, we're remembering a unique record for San Antonio today. Right now on KSAT.com, you can read all about the night that San Antonio dropped down to 0 degrees all the way back on this day in 1949.
Glad I missed it.
I know.
Can you imagine? Jeez Louise. Yeah, our Justin Horn put that article together a couple days ago. He's kind of our history buff here on the weather team. He did a great job. There's even pictures. It is really, really cool. So go check it out on KSAT.com.
Yeah, I called that big storm hitting the Northeast a winter whopper last night.
Yes.
I think it's a full-blown wallop now.
Wallop. Golly, just insane what those folks are dealing with. Thankfully, we were in the 70s today here in South Texas. I'll take that over feet of snow. I don't know about you. I'm not a snow hater, but I like our 73 today. That's about 9 degrees above average for this time of year. And there is that record, a low of 0 set back in 1949. We were much warmer than that today, thankfully. So 73 at the airport in San Antonio this afternoon. We did have some spots touch 80. Down well to the south of Highway 90, 81 in Cotulla, 77 Carrizo Springs, and high temperatures today, mid to upper 60s in the hill country. Overall, a very comfortable day because the air was nice and dry. Our dew points were down in the 20s and 30s today, thanks to the frontal boundary that came through yesterday. Winds that were a touch breezy this afternoon now are becoming light, just about 5 to 10 miles per hour. Temperature-wise right now, anywhere from the 40s to the 50s, down closer to the Highway 90 corridor. Still a few spots there in the low 60s, but we're all going to cool down really efficiently overnight. And here are our dew points now, down in the 20s and 30s, so very, very dry air out there, and winds starting to become light. They are up closer to 10 miles per hour in places like New Braunfels, also in Laredo. And overnight, I can't rule out wind speeds between about 5 and 15 miles per hour, but generally a wind should be on the lighter side tonight. So the combination of lighter winds, dry air, clear skies, that'll help our temperatures to really bottom out overnight. So we're looking at 40s and 30s. A few spots in the hill country like Kerrville and Fredericksburg could see a light freeze through early tomorrow morning. Most of us will be above freezing. We'll go right around 40 here in San Antonio, low to mid 40s as you get farther south of Highway 90. Tomorrow afternoon, a nice rebound in our temperatures. I think it's going to be a touch cooler tomorrow than it was today. More of us in the 60s versus the 70s and upper 70s, but overall still very comfortable with a lot of sunshine. So you'll see some clouds here on Futurecast. I do think we'll start to see some high thin clouds filter in tomorrow, but even those clouds will still allow for a lot of sunshine to get through. So we'll see that on Monday, even into Tuesday as well. Still plenty of sunshine, even just with some of those high, thin clouds in the sky. Those are nice because they make for nice pops of color around sunrise and sunset. So keep your eyes peeled the next couple of days. We may have some nice color in the sky. Things will stay pretty quiet for us through Wednesday. It won't be until late Thursday that we start to talk about our next frontal boundary. It'll be because of this upper level low that still by Wednesday afternoon will be well off to our northwest. As that makes its way east into Thursday and Friday, that's expected to drag another frontal boundary through. It doesn't look like that will help us out very much with rain. Unfortunately, I've only got a chance of a stray shower as we get into Thursday and Thursday night. But as we get into next weekend, I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit here. That low is going to move off to the east and open the door for some Arctic air to spill down across a good portion of the U.S. So big time cool down. Talking very frigid air for portions of the Midwest, Great Lakes, potentially even into the southeast. A lot of this very, very cold air will miss us off to the northeast, but I am expecting a much cooler weekend next weekend, especially on Sunday. So jumping ahead here, 65 Saturday, going 50s for high temperatures on Sunday. So if maybe the 70s this week is a little too warm for you, it does look like next weekend could be a bit cooler. So we'll keep you updated there this week. Overnight, very quiet weather, temperatures falling into the 40s. We'll start off chilly tomorrow morning, mid 60s tomorrow afternoon. So a little cooler than today, but overall still very comfortable. There's that front late Thursday. Unfortunately, a very, very low chance of rain there. Really, that's one of the only things we can complain about with this forecast is a lack of some much needed rain. Guys.
I'm going with the prediction of 6 more weeks of winter for the Groundhog Day announcement.
Oh, okay. Well,
but that doesn't mean anything to us here. It doesn't mean anything in general.
I was going to say, it's 70
It's a
degrees.
rodent. It doesn't know anything. We'll have a preview of Instant Replay next. Super Bowl week has arrived for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the defending champion Kansas City Chiefs. Let's talk about it with our Greg Simmons as we get ready for the big game.
Yeah, this is what some people are calling the matchup of all time in Super Bowl history. And can the Spurs bounce back against Memphis after the Grizzlies wrecked their 3-game win streak? Coming up tonight on a brand new edition of Instant Replay.
I'm feeling good. Don't have broken toe this time, so that's cool.
Derek White made his second comeback of the season after he re-injured his second toe in his left foot against the Lakers back in January. He celebrated the moment by leading the Spurs in scoring against Memphis, but the Grizzlies wound up beating the Spurs, ending their 3-game win streak. Now the question is, will the Spurs bounce back tomorrow in a quick rematch?
Experience doesn't matter. Playing well matters. The team that wins is not going to be the most experienced team. It's going to be the team that plays the best.
There you go. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers become the first team in NFL history to host their own Super Bowl against the defending NFL champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. It's Mahomes versus Brady. Some are calling it the greatest matchup in Super Bowl history. Get you ready for the big game.
Hard for me to imagine that Houston would let a known commodity like Deshaun Watson get out the building. Because really, where's he going to go?
And a former Super Bowl champion, Brian Billick, the former head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, weighs in on the football drama in Houston between the Texans and their star quarterback and what's next for the Cowboys and their injured quarterback, Dak Prescott. They'll also talk about the product he's invested in that is making its way to high school football programs. All that plus what happens between the Texans and their quarterback, Deshaun Watson, who wants out of Houston. Tonight, you decide. Instant Replay is live. And it's after the Nightbeat. I just can't imagine being their new head coach. And, oh, by the way, you have this drama to deal with. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. Thank you, Greg. We'll see you again in a little bit. We'll see you on the other side of this break. Tomorrow marks the first day of Black History Month, and across the country, people are raising awareness of the coronavirus pandemic's impact on the Black community.
But they're also celebrating the resilience of Black Americans who faced unprecedented challenges this past year. Nadia Romero looks back at the impact of COVID-19, protests, and history-making elections for Black Americans.
A global pandemic, COVID-19 killing the father and grandfather of Detroit's Keith Gambrill.
It's very frustrating. It's heartbreaking. It's bitter. It's America.
The virus disproportionately impacting the Black community, highlighting long-standing inequities in health care. The CDC reports Black Americans dying at 3 times the rate of white Americans. In response, Thermo Fisher Scientific, a science equipment company, pledged $15 million for tests and equipment to historically Black colleges and universities in August.
This has gotten, Black and brown researchers excited. This is why we do what we do. The community that's given me so much growing up, it's really nice to be able to see more testing efforts being brought to D.C.
Then came the COVID-19 vaccines, some Black people hesitant to get the shot.
We know that lack of trust is a major cause for reluctance, especially in communities of color. And that lack of trust is not without good reason, as the Tuskegee studies occurred within many of our own lifetimes.
Howard University encouraging confidence in the vaccine.
I'm getting vaccinated to be an example to my community.
While battling a new pandemic, an old foe reared its ugly head again: racism. Several states have now declared racism a public health emergency, acknowledging a painful past for Black Americans that's still felt in present day.
When I say George, you say Floyd. George Floyd! George Floyd!
The deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and other Black Americans at the hands of police motivated a movement.
No justice, no peace!
People spilling into the streets, demanding an end to police brutality and racial inequality.
You must stand, you must fight, but not with violence.
Channeling the civil rights movement of the 1960s. With the heartbreaking loss of civil rights icon Congressman John Lewis, a renewed push for legislative change. The Congressional Black Caucus celebrating as the House passed a police reform bill named after George Floyd and urging more action.
Protests spread around the world, with people in other countries calling out human rights abuses in the United States.
Big companies like Google and Yelp stepped up. Perfect timing for Black business owners, shutting down in numbers twice as large as others during the pandemic, according to a report from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. But for Atlanta's Slutty Vegan restaurant, before and during the pandemic, growing pandemonium for vegan burgers.
It takes a village. I couldn't be who I am by myself.
The business owner opened 2 more shops and a food truck, just one glimmer of success in an unprecedented year, a year that included pain and protest after protest. Marching all the way to the ballot box for change.
The Black community came together and united to really put forth an effort to get everybody out to vote.
In Mississippi, a nearly 40-year fight finally won to replace the Confederate-themed state flag.
Black folk in this state are very proud, and young folk
young black folk don't have this flag to look to the rest of their lives.
In Georgia, electing its first black U.S. senator. And nationally, a glass ceiling breaking.
I, Kamala Davy Harris, do solemnly swear.
The first woman and a person of color as vice president. Another historic moment to add to the long list of accomplishments celebrated during Black History Month. In Washington, I'm Nadia Romero.
Continuing with coronavirus coverage, Homeland Security says TSA now has the authority to enforce President Biden's mask mandate for passengers. Tomorrow, TSA workers will be making sure passengers at screening checkpoints are wearing their masks. Biden's order applies to any form of public transportation, including airports and other transportation hubs. Under the new mandate, the mask needs to have at least 2 or more layers of breathable fabric and fit snugly. Scarves and bandanas are not allowed. Violations could be met with criminal penalties.
The CDC wants you to stay safe for the Super Bowl this year. That's why it is issuing new guidance for the game. The CDC says attending large gatherings like Super Bowl parties greatly increases your risk of getting and spreading COVID-19. The guidance says the safest way to watch the Super Bowl is at home with people you live with. However, if you do choose to go to a larger event, you are encouraged to use noisemakers instead of cheering, arriving early to avoid crowds, and using touchless payment methods.
Outside with live cam, 56 degrees. It's a really beautiful night out there. Got chilly pretty quickly. I actually think we're down to closer to 50 at the airport, so our ticker is a little behind. Bottom line, getting cool out there, and it's going to be a chilly start to the work and school week tomorrow morning. So if you've got plans early, you need to get the doggos out for a little walk before you head to work. Grab a jacket. We'll be near 40 early in the morning, but a pretty quick warm up by mid-morning under full sunshine with some dry air in place. The next few days, the first few days of February look really nice, but we do have another front coming later this week. We'll talk about that and get you ready for the week ahead coming up.
Thank you, Katie. But still ahead, he is only 8 years old and is already a published author. What's Up South Texas is next. A young San Antonio boy is not letting his battle with ADHD stop him from becoming a successful author.
Yeah, 8-year-old Jordan McPhee has already entered the publishing world. He's next on our feature, What's Up, South Texas?
The Night Team's Japhanie Gray introduces us to Jordan and his mother, who have both accomplished their goals together.
This animated 8-year-old is Jordan McPhee. He likes to dance, anime, but more than anything, he likes to read and write. His mother, 34-year-old Rachel Hinton, says Jordan was an early learner at everything.
He would not go to bed unless he had a bedtime story. And he just always loved to read and write. To this day, he reads all night. I have to try to take the books away from him.
Now,
Not Too Little to Play by Jordan E. McPhee.
Jordan is the one writing the books. The young author published his first book, Not Too Little to Play, a story about one young kid's love for football. Elijah scores winning touchdowns despite people underestimating him.
Elijah was able to score 2 touchdowns and winning the game for his team.
As a single parent, Rachel has supported him every step of the way.
I want to be there for him and be the best mother that I could be, because my mother, she died when I was 16, so I didn't have, and she was very sickly throughout my entire childhood, so I didn't really have much time, with her.
Her mission to give Jordan a better life started when he was 3 years old. She and Jordan moved here to Texas to leave an abusive relationship.
I don't want him to see that type of behavior and grow up to, be that way as well. So I want Jordan to grow up to be, a loving person and to be a good man to someone. So I got to show him, I got to be the example.
Being that example, Rachel has since received her master's degree in business administration, and both she and Jordan have entered the entrepreneurial world with their own online stores. That's an awesome read for What's Up South Texas.
Let God order your steps and keep him first, and you can accomplish anything.
Never let the odds keep you from doing what you know in your heart you were meant to do.
Japhanie Gray, KSAT 12 News.
Pretty cool. Way to go, Jordan. Mom's not too bad either.
Exactly.
And that money you put in, all that money you put into your makeshift home office during the pandemic, could it be a tax deductible write-off? The answer next on the Nightbeat. A lot of people have been working from home for the past year now. There are perks like no commute and being able to wear your slippers. But what about the money you plunked down for all that new office gear? Is it deductible on your federal taxes? 12 on your side's Marilyn Moritz has some answers.
Working from home, it's been taxing enough. But what about that new desk or chair you bought? Maybe a computer, a printer, even ring light for Zoom meetings? Can you write them off on your taxes?
Unfortunately, if you are an employee only, that is not something you can deduct.
CPA Jose Garcia, also working from home, says if you are a W-2 employee, the answer is no. Tax reform a few years ago eliminated those deductions in exchange for a higher standard deduction. But there are still some people who may be in luck. If you are self-employed or an independent contractor, you can deduct qualified expenses.
Then you may be able to deduct part of the house that you use exclusively for office or administrative work for your self-employment.
But it does have to be your main place of business, used only for business, not your kitchen where you set up your laptop. For the rest of us, there's another option to recoup out-of-pocket spending for working from home.
What I suggest is try to negotiate something with your employer and see what options they provide to you.
It may not hurt to ask. Marilyn Moritz, KSAT 12 News.
Well, working outside today would have been beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
It was so nice. Mm-hmm. And the mountain cedar was a little bit lower.
Yes. Yeah. It was moderate today.
Exactly.
Which is a win. It doesn't even have to be low this time of year. If it's moderate instead of high, that's a win. And good segue, Courtney, because I do think, unfortunately, cedar could go up tomorrow because of the fact that it was breezy today. Not just because it was breezy, because our winds were out of the north. So we had winds about 10 to 20 miles per hour for a good portion of the day today. They're lighter now, still northerly, about 5 to 15 miles per hour, and that's where they'll stay overnight. So today's count, moderate 250. And again, because it was breezy today and those northerly winds, I do think that count will likely become a bit more elevated into Monday. So frowny face for Monday. Now, tomorrow's winds will be light, so we should see the number drop into Tuesday and then even more into Wednesday as our wind direction starts to become a bit more southerly. But just keep in mind, we could see a higher mountain cedar count tomorrow. So we talk about our KSAT Weather Authority app pretty often here amongst the weather team. It does a lot of things. It can get you your forecast, live radar. If we've got severe weather, we can broadcast live through our weather app. But another thing it does daily is deliver the pollen count right to the palm of your hand. We get the pollen count emailed to us every morning. It's usually in during the 7 o'clock hour. And within a few minutes, member of the KSAT weather team will send out a push alert right to your phone if you've got the weather app downloaded. You do need to make sure that you allow notifications in your phone settings so that you can see that pollen count come through each morning. You've got it with you by 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, and you're good to go for the rest of the day. You know what's going on. So just another feature of our KSAT weather app. So we'll watch the cedar tomorrow. We'll send it out first thing in the morning when we get it. If it's high, that's kind of the only thing we'll be able to complain about tomorrow. It's going to be a pleasant day. Chilly in the morning, temperatures in the mid 60s in the afternoon, a touch cooler as compared to today, but overall really nice. Out there tonight, 50 at the airport, 52 in Hondo, 42 in Kerrville, 62 in Cotulla. So a nice little spread in our temperatures, but everyone pretty comfortable because our air is nice and dry. Our dew points are in the 20s and 30s. These dew point numbers will be staying low for a couple days. By the middle of the week, they start to climb a bit, but still feeling very comfortable. As we get into Thursday, they'll still be in pleasant range. I don't think they're going to be allowed to climb up into muggy territory before our next frontal boundary comes through late Thursday into Friday. Now, because our dew points don't have enough time to climb, we don't have a lot of moisture to work with. So as this front comes through Thursday into Friday, it will likely be a dry frontal passage for us, meaning no rain. That's not good news because as you know by this point, we definitely do need the rain. There's a lot of rain over on the East Coast. There's been a lot of snow across portions of the Midwest. Now over to the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast tonight. They are going to be dealing with the snow tonight, tomorrow, even through Tuesday. So some big time snowfall totals up in that portion of the country because of this nice dip in the jet stream here that will continue to move north and east. So our weather pattern will stay pretty quiet through Wednesday, Thursday. Here comes that dry frontal passage later in the day Thursday. I've got a chance of a stray shower in there for now, but I think even that is going to be hard to come by with this frontal passage. But what else is going to happen here? This upper level low is going to open the door to Canada and the Arctic, and that's going to allow for some much colder air to drop down over the continental United States as we get into late this week, really next weekend, and then early next week. So we do have a good shot at seeing some below average temperatures in the next 6 to 10 days. Really, that's looking like next weekend. So if this week pushing 80 is too warm, we do have some cooler air on the horizon in the next 7-8 days or so. So keep that in mind. Overnight down to around 40 degrees under clear skies. We'll have a few high thin clouds around tomorrow, but still plenty of sunshine to help warm us into the mid 60s. Nice on Groundhog Day as well. Again, we'll be pushing 80 Thursday before that frontal boundary comes through. Cooler air spilling in, and we could only be as warm as the 50s next Sunday. So we'll keep an eye on that for you this week, guys.
A little early for the 80s for me.
Yeah. All I care about is the low seater. I'm just struggle bus, but we'll see. We'll be right back.
Monster Hunter made $740,000, landing in 5th place.
You're never going to make it. It's miles to the nearest road. I'll call Border Patrol.
Please, there, no.
After 2 weekends on top, The Marksman fell to 4th place with $1.25 million.
Nothing good is born from lies.
Wonder Woman 1984 made $1.3 million to remain in 3rd place.
We happy meet you. Thanks.
Oh.
The Croods, A New Age, is still going strong, staying in 2nd place with $1.8 million in its 10th weekend in theaters.
How's the trunk space?
A big debut for The Little Things. Denzel Washington, Rami Malek, and Jared Leto star in the crime thriller, which opened on top with $4.8 million. In Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
The two teams that would like to have their 2020 seasons back the most to do all over again are the Dallas Cowboys and the Houston Texans.
That's very true. Coming up on Instant Replay tonight, the good, the bad, and the ugly of both the Cowboys and the Texans before Super Bowl Sunday. With more, let's head to Greg Simmons.
Can you imagine being their new head coach and he gets told, oh, by the way, your star quarterback doesn't want to play here anymore?
Walking into a mess.
We're working on that. And our Andrew Seeley has a story of the Hell Careers girls swim team and what motivated them to a district title this season and into regionals. Coming up tonight on a brand new edition of Instant Replay. The Dallas Cowboys and the Houston Texans only managed 10 wins combined in 2020. So what was the good, the bad, and the ugly that stood out in Dallas and Houston? And now both of their star quarterbacks have big questions that have yet to be answered before next season kicks off. Patty Mills is having a career season just 20 games into the Spurs schedule. We'll break down Patty's numbers now that Derek White has returned. And tonight, our Andrew Seeley has a bounce-back story of the girls' swim team at Hell Careers High School, what motivated them to take a district title and into regionals. Combine that with some school history in the making. Andrew will show us, and the McCullum boys and girls basketball teams had some impressive plays this week. We want to show you. And all that plus, can the Spurs bounce back against the Grizzlies at a quick rematch tomorrow? The sports guys are back tonight with all the answers. Instant Replay is live, and it's next. And that's more common this year because of the COVID-19, keeping the teams in town to battle more than once.
Kind of like it. It's like a mini series.
It is, yeah.
All right, thanks, Greg. We'll see you in just a bit.
Well, what's a better way to spend your birthday than in the sky? Find out what makes this descent from 13,000 feet so special. Tell Me Something Good is next.